depth of field is the amount of distance between the nearest and farthest objects in an image, where a particular area in that image appears focused and acceptably sharp.
So why is depth of field a cool thing to do when you're filming or taking photographs? It reduces the distraction and keeps you focused on the subject. It gives your video or image a much more cinematic sort of feel. So to the most important part now, how do we actually achieve a blurry background? There's a few things you have to consider. Aperture, the space you have to play around with, and also the zoom. So this here is a zoom lens. So what that means is this particular lens is able to home in on the subject, essentially bringing it sort of closer to the eye. And whilst it's doing that, it makes everything that's behind it blurrier. So if you have a zoom lens already, you now know that you can play around with your zoom lens to try and achieve your depth of field. The zoom and the space you have to play around with are very much interlinked because they help each other to achieve a better depth of field. So now it comes down to the space. The further the subject is away from the background, bearing in mind the subject is in focus, the blurrier the background will become. As you can see, in terms of space, I'm a lot further away from the background than I was before, which creates a greater depth of field. The more space you have, the greater potential for a good depth of field. So how that works is you move yourself away from the background so that everything behind you becomes out of focus and basically a lot more blurry. To reiterate my point, it's a lot easier to achieve a depth of field when you're outdoors because the background, say if you're in a park, is far away from you. So that is already going to be very blurry. When you're indoors or in a home setting, you've got a lot less room to play with. So you've got to use that to your advantage. Get further away from your background. Doesn't necessarily mean getting closer to the camera, but just getting further away from whatever is behind you. Finally, the aperture, aka the f-stop. This is the opening in the lens that allows the light to pass through. Right, so aperture is measured in f-stops, and it gets a little bit confusing because larger apertures have a smaller f-stop number. Don't let the technical terms confuse you. I know it confuses a lot of people. The most important points to note are that the smaller your f-stop number, the larger your aperture and the more light you're getting through your lens, therefore creating a better depth of field. For example, if you had a lens with an aperture of 1.2, it would be able to take in a lot more light than a lens with an aperture of, say, 5.6. Now we understand the concept behind aperture. We should know we want a larger aperture, which means a lower f-stop number, and that means we can achieve depth of field a lot more easily. So that brings us down to our recommendations. Just so you know, you don't necessarily need to go out and get a new piece of kit. The camera that you have at the moment will be able to achieve depth of field. You just need to use your surroundings and what you have to the best of your ability. Although, if you do have a bit of spare cash, you can go out there and buy yourself a lens that will allow you to achieve depth of field a lot more easily. My recommendations for if you are on a budget and you're a Canon DSLR camera user is the Canon f1.8 50mm prime lens. In this setup we are using a Canon f1.8 50mm prime lens. As you can see, we've got a good depth of field even though there's a short distance between the subject in focus and the background. My recommendation for a moderately expensive lens is the Sigma f1.8 18-35mm zoom lens. Both these lenses allow you to achieve a good depth of field. However, as you might expect, it's the more expensive lens that has a better quality and is a lot more versatile. I hope this video has helped you to understand how to achieve a good depth of field. If you do have any questions, just leave a comment below and we will endeavour to get back to you. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next one. Stay beautiful and be positive.